Macao, also spelled Macao, is one of the two special administrative regions of the People's Republic of China, the other being Hong Kong. Macao lies on the western side of the Pearl River Delta across from Hong Kong to the east, which is about 64 kilometers, also bordered by Guangdong Province to the north and facing the South China Sea to the east and south. The territory's economy is heavily dependent on gambling and tourism, but also includes manufacturing. The Cantonese people from Hong Kong and Guangdong, especially recent mainland tourism from Mandarin-speaking regions, have boosted the economy of Macau significantly. A former Portuguese colony, Macau was administered by Portugal from the mid-16th century until late 1999, when it was the last remaining European colony in Asia. Portuguese traders first settled in Macau in the 1550s. In 1557, Macau was rented to Portugal by the Chinese Empire as a trading port. The Portuguese administered the city under Chinese authority and sovereignty until 1887, when Macau became a colony of the Portuguese Empire. Sovereignty over Macau was transferred back to China on December 20, 1999. The Sino-Portuguese Joint Declaration and the Basic Law of Macau stipulate that Macau operate with a high degree of autonomy until at least 2049, 50 years after the transfer. By 2002, it had become one of the world's richest cities. It became the world's biggest gambling center in 2006. Under the policy of one country, two systems, the PRC's Central People's Government is responsible for the territory's defense and foreign affairs, while Macau maintains its own legal system, police force, monetary system, customs policy, and immigration policy. Macau participates in many international organizations and events that do not require members to possess national sovereignty. According to the World Factbook, Macau has the second highest life expectancy in the world. In addition, Macau is one of the very few regions in Asia with a very high Human Development Index, ranking 23rd or 24th in the world in 2007. Etymology. Before the Portuguese settlement in the mid-16th century, Macau was known as Haojing or Jing'ai. The name Macau is thought to be derived from the Àomén temple, a temple built in 1448 dedicated to Məʻkaʊ, the goddess of seafarers and fishermen. It is said that when the Portuguese sailors landed at the coast just outside the temple and asked the name of the place, the natives replied "A pound." The Portuguese then named the peninsula Macau. The present Chinese name means inlet gates. History. The history of Macau is traced back to the Qin dynasty, when the region now called Macau came under the jurisdiction of Panwu County, in Nanhai Prefecture. The first recorded inhabitants of the area were people seeking refuge in Macau from invading Mongols during the Southern Song dynasty. Under the Ming dynasty, fishermen migrated to Macau from Guangdong and Fujian provinces. Macau did not develop as a major settlement until the Portuguese arrived in the 16th century. In 1513, Jorge Alvares became the first Portuguese to land in China. In 1535, Portuguese traders obtained the rights to anchor ships in Macau's harbors and to carry out trading activities, though not the right to stay on shore. Around 1552–1553, they obtained temporary permission to erect storage sheds on shore, in order to dry out goods drenched by seawater. They soon built rudimentary stone houses around the area now called Nam Van. In 1557, the Portuguese established a permanent settlement in Macau, paying an annual rent of 500 taels of silver. The Portuguese continued to pay an annual tribute up to 1863 in order to stay in Macau. By 1564, Portugal commanded Western trade with India, Japan, and China. But their pride was shocked by the indifference with which the Chinese treated them. The Senate of Macau once complained to the Viceroy of Goa of the contempt with which the Chinese authorities treated them, confessing however that it was owing more to the Portuguese themselves than to the Chinese. In 1631 the Chinese restricted Portuguese commerce in China to the port of Macau. During the 17th century, some 5,000 slaves lived in Macau, in addition to 2,000 Portuguese and 20,000 Chinese. As more Portuguese settled in Macau to engage in trade, they made demands for self-administration. But this was not achieved until the 1840s. In 1576, Pope Gregory XIII established the Roman Catholic Diocese of Macau. In 1583, the Portuguese in Macau were permitted to form a senate to handle various issues concerning their social and economic affairs under strict supervision of the Chinese authority, but there was no transfer of sovereignty. Macau prospered as a port, but it was the target of repeated failed attempts by the Dutch to conquer it in the 17th century. On June 24, 1622, the Dutch attacked Macau in the Battle of Macao, in the hope of turning it into a Dutch possession. The Portuguese repulsed their attack and the Dutch never tried to conquer Macau again. The majority of the defenders were African slaves, with only a few Portuguese soldiers and priests. Captain Cornelis Rissoon was commander of the 800 Dutch-strong invasion force. The Dutch governor Jan Cohen said after the defeat that the slaves of the Portuguese at Macau served them so well and faithfully, that it was they who defeated and drove away our people there last year, and our people saw very few Portuguese during the battle. Following the Opium War, Portugal occupied Tepa and Coloane in 1851 and 1864 respectively. On December 1, 1887, the Qing and Portuguese government signed the Sino-Portuguese Treaty of Amity and Commerce, under which China ceded the right of perpetual occupation and government of Macau by Portugal in compliance with the statements of the Protocol of Lisbon. In return, Macau government would cooperate with Hong Kong's smuggle of Indian opium and China would be able to increase profits through customs taxes. Portugal was also obliged never to alienate Macau without previous agreement with China, therefore ensuring that negotiation between Portugal and France or with other countries would not go forward so that the British commercial interests would be secured. Macau officially became a territory under Portuguese administration. In 1928, after the Qing dynasty had been overthrown following the Xinhai Revolution, the Kuomintang government officially notified Portugal that it was abrogating the Treaty of Amity and Commerce. The two powers signed a new Sino-Portuguese Friendship and Trade Treaty in place of the abrogated treaty. Making only a few provisions concerning tariff principles and matters relating to business affairs, the new treaty did not alter the sovereignty of Macau and Portuguese government of Macau remained unchanged. During the Second World War, unlike Portuguese Timor which was occupied by the Japanese in 1942 along with Dutch Timor, the Japanese respected Portuguese neutrality in Macau, but only up to a point. As such, Macau enjoyed a brief period of economic prosperity as the only neutral port in South China, after the Japanese had occupied Guangzhou and Hong Kong. In August 1943, Japanese troops seized the British steamer Shan in Macau and killed about 20 guards. Next month they demanded the installation of Japanese advisors under the alternative of military occupation. The result was that a virtual Japanese protectorate was created over Macau. When it was discovered that neutral Macau was planning to sell aviation fuel to Japan, aircraft from the USA Enterprise bombed and strafed the hangar of the Naval Aviation Center on January 16, 1945 to destroy the fuel. American air raids on targets in Macau were also made on February 25 and June 11, 1945. Following Portuguese government protest, in 1950 the United States paid $20,255,952 to the government of Portugal. Between the end of the Pacific War and the establishment of the People's Republic of China, Macau served as a safe haven for refugees of the Civil War in mainland China. After the establishment of the People's Republic of China in 1949, the Beijing government declared the Sino-Portuguese Treaty of Amity and Commerce invalid as an unequal treaty imposed by foreigners on China. However, Beijing was not ready to settle the treaty question, leaving the maintenance of the status quo until a more appropriate time. Influenced by the Cultural Revolution in mainland China and by general dissatisfaction with Portuguese government, riots broke out in Macau in 1966. In the most serious, the so-called 12-3 incident, 6 people were killed and more than 200 people were injured. On January 28, 1967, the Portuguese government issued a formal apology by means of an admission of guilt. Shortly after the overthrow of the Portuguese dictatorship in 1974 in Lisbon, the new Portuguese government determined it would relinquish all its overseas possessions. In 1976, Lisbon redefined Macau as a Chinese territory under Portuguese administration, and granted it a large measure of administrative, financial, and economic autonomy. 3 years later, Portugal and China agreed to regard Macau as a Chinese territory under Portuguese administration. The Chinese and Portuguese governments commenced negotiations on the question of Macau in June 1986. The two signed a Sino-Portuguese Joint Declaration the next year, making Macau a special administrative region of China. The Chinese government assumed formal sovereignty over Macau on December 20, 1999. The economy since then has continued to prosper with the sustained growth of tourism from mainland China and the construction of new casinos. Government and politics. The Sino-Portuguese Joint Declaration and the Basic Law, Macau's constitution promulgated by China's National People's Congress in 1993, specify that Macau's social and economic system, lifestyle, rights, and freedoms are to remain unchanged for at least 50 years after the transfer of sovereignty to China in 1999. Under the principle of one country, two systems, Macau enjoys a high degree of autonomy in all areas except in defense and foreign affairs. Macau officials, rather than PRC officials, run Macau through the exercise of separate executive, legislative, and judicial powers, as well as the right to final adjudication. Macau maintains its own separate currency, customs territory, immigration and border controls, and police force. Executive. The government in Macau is headed by the chief executive, who is appointed by the central government upon the recommendation of an election committee, whose 300 members are nominated by corporate and community bodies. The recommendation is made by an election within the committee. The chief executive's cabinet is made up of 5 policy secretaries and is advised by the Executive Council that has between 7 and 11 members. Edmund Ho Hao Wah, a community leader and former banker, was the first chief executive of the Macau SAR, replacing General Vasco Rocha Vieira at midnight on December 20, 1999. Fernando Chui Sion is the current chief executive. The chief executive and the cabinet have their offices in the Macau government headquarters, located in the former area of the St. Lawrence Parish. Legislature. The legislative organ of the territory is the Legislative Assembly, a 33-member body comprising 14 directly elected members, 12 indirectly elected members representing functional constituencies and 7 members appointed by the chief executive. Any permanent residents at or over 18 years of age are eligible to vote in direct elections. Indirect election is limited to organizations registered as corporate voters, and a 300-member election committee drawn from broad regional groupings, municipal organizations, and central government bodies. Judiciary. The original framework of the legal system, based largely on Portuguese law or Portuguese civil law system, was preserved after 1999. The territory has its own independent judicial system with a high court. Judges are selected by a committee and appointed by the chief executive. Foreign judges may serve on the courts. Macau has a 3-tier court system, the Court of the First Instance, the Court of the Second Instance and the Court of Final Appeal. In February 2009, the Legislative Assembly passed a security bill based on the withdrawn security legislation previously introduced in Hong Kong. Democracy advocates feared that the bill's excessively broad scope could lead to abuses, a concern which has been heightened after a number of prominent supporters of democracy in Hong Kong were denied entry into Macau in the run-up to the bill's passage. Military. Under Portuguese rule, Macau often served as an expeditionary base to Japan and other regions of East Asia from the 16th century onwards, while maintaining a strong garrison mainly to repel Dutch and mainland Chinese attacks. However, since the Allied British settled Hong Kong, the need for a strong military presence in Macau dimmed and it became limited before ceasing in 1974. However, despite no Portuguese garrison was left on the territory, a small security force managed by the local PSP was kept, which proved useful with escalating triad warfare tensions towards the last decades of Portuguese administration. Also, the Capitania dos Portos kept operating a coast guard and the Portuguese Air Force kept airfields active until the opening of Macau International Airport in the mid-1990s. In 1999, Upon handover to the PRC, a substantial garrison of the People's Liberation Army was established in the city, helping deliver the last blow to the violence perpetrated by the triads, who were weakened by police action and arrests prior to the handover. The garrison remains, with a large portion of the forces stationed in neighboring Zhuhai as well. Geography. Macau is situated 60 kilometers southwest of Hong Kong and 145 kilometers from Guangzhou. It also has 41 kilometers of coastline, yet only 310 meters of land border with Guangdong. It consists of the Macao Peninsula itself and the islands of Taipa and Kowloon, which are now connected by landfill forming Cotai. The peninsula is formed by the Tsujiang estuary on the east and the Zhejiang on the west. It borders the Zhuhai Special Economic Zone in mainland China. The main border crossing between Macau and China is known as the Portas do Cerco on the Macau side, and the Gongbei port of entry on the Zhuhai side. Macao Peninsula was originally an island, but a connecting sandbar gradually turned into a narrow isthmus, thus changing Macau into a peninsula. Land reclamation in the 17th century transformed Macau into a peninsula with generally flat terrain, though numerous steep hills still mark the original land mass. Alto de Kowloon is the highest point in Macau, with an altitude of 170.6 meters. With a dense urban environment, Macau has no arable land, pastures, forest, or woodland. Climate. Macau has a humid subtropical climate, with average relative humidity between 75% and 90%. Similar to much of South China, seasonal climate is greatly influenced by the monsoons, and differences in temperature and humidity between summer and winter are noticeable, though not as great as inland China. The average annual temperature of Macau is 22.7 degrees Celsius. July is the warmest month, with average temperature being 28.9 degrees Celsius. The coolest month is January, with a mean temperature of 14.5 degrees Celsius. Located on China's southern coast, Macau has ample rainfall, with average annual precipitation being 2,120 millimeters. However, winter is mostly dry due to the influence of the vast Siberian high affecting much of East Asia. Autumn in Macau, from October to November, is sunny and still pleasantly warm with low humidity. Winter is generally mild with temperature above 13 degrees Celsius most of the time, although it could also drop to below 8 degrees Celsius at times. Humidity starts to increase from late March. Summer is very warm to hot at daytime. The hot weather is often followed by heavy rain, thunderstorms and occasional typhoons. Economy. Macau's economy is based largely on tourism. Other chief economic activities in Macau are export-geared textile and garment manufacturing, banking and other financial services. The clothing industry has provided about 3/4 of export earnings, and the gaming, tourism and hospitality industry is estimated to contribute more than 50% of Macau's GDP, and 70% of Macau government revenue. Macau is a founding member of the WTO and has maintained sound economic and trade relations with more than 120 countries and regions, with European Union and Portuguese-speaking countries in particular. Macau is also a member of the IMF. The World Bank classifies Macau as a high-income economy and the GDP per capita of the region in 2006 was $28,436. After the handover in 1999, there has been a rapid rise in the number of mainland visitors due to China's easing of travel restrictions. Together with the liberalization of Macau's gaming industry in 2001 that induces significant investment inflows, the average growth rate of the economy between 2001 and 2006 was approximately 13.1% annually. In a World Tourism Organization report of international tourism for 2006, Macau ranked 21st in the number of tourists and 24th in terms of tourism receipts. From 9.1 million visitors in 2000, arrivals to Macau has grown to 18.7 million visitors in 2005 and 22 million visitors in 2006, with over 50% of the arrivals coming from mainland China and another 30% from Hong Kong. Starting in 1962, The gambling industry had been operated under a government-issued monopoly license by Stanley Ho's Sociedade de Turismo y Diversiones de Macao. The monopoly ended in 2002 and several casino owners from Las Vegas attempted to enter the market. With the opening of the Sands Macao in 2004 and Wynn Macau in 2006, gambling revenues from Macao's casinos were greatly prosperous. In 2007, Venetian Macao, at the time the second-largest building in the world by floor space, opened its doors to the public, followed by MGM Grand Macao. Numerous other hotel casinos, including Galaxy Cotai Resort, opened in 2011, and plans for a $3.9 billion complex that will be known as Lisboa Palace is expected to be completed by 2017. In 2002, the Macau government ended the monopoly system and 6 casino operating concessions and sub-concessions are granted to Sociedade de Turismo y Diversiones de Macao, Wynn Resorts, Las Vegas Sands, Galaxy Entertainment Group, the partnership of MGM Mirage and Pansy Ho, and the partnership of Melco and Publishing and Broadcasting Limited. Today, there are 16 casinos operated by the STDM, and they are still crucial in the casino industry in Macau, but in 2004, the opening of the Sands Macao ushered in the new era. Gambling revenue has made Macau the world's top casino market, surpassing Las Vegas. In the early 2010s, Macau also ramped up show and entertainments in addition to gambling business, including the famous show House of Dancing Water, concerts, industry trade shows and international art crossovers. Macau is an offshore financial center, a tax haven, and a free port with no foreign exchange control regimes. The Monetary Authority of Macau regulates offshore finance, while the Macau Trade and Investment Promotion Institute provides services for investment in Macau. In 2007, Moody's Investors Service upgraded Macau's foreign and local currency government issuer ratings 2 or 3 from A1, citing its government's solid finances as a large net creditor. The rating agency also upgraded Macau's foreign currency bank deposit ceiling 2 or 3 from A1. As prescribed by the Macau Basic Law, the government follows the principle of keeping expenditure within the limits of revenues in drawing up its budget, and strives to achieve a fiscal balance, avoid deficits and keep the budget commensurate with the growth rate of its gross domestic product. All the financial revenues of the Macau Special Administrative Region shall be managed and controlled by the region itself and shall not be handed over to the Central People's Government. The Central People's Government shall not levy any taxes in the Macau Special Administrative Region. Monetary system: in Macau, the unit of currency is the pitaka, which is currently pegged to the Hong Kong dollar at a rate of 1 Hong Kong dollar equals 1.03 Macanese pitaka. The name pitaka is a Portuguese word which was applied to the Mexican dollars that were the main circulating coin in the wider region in the second half of the 19th century. In 1894, the pitaka was introduced in both Macau and Portuguese Timor as a unit of account for the Mexican dollar and the other silver dollar coins in circulation. However, the pitaka was not the official currency when it was first enacted. In 1901, it was decided to grant the Banco Nacional Ultramarino the exclusive rights to issue banknotes denominated in patakas, and in the year 1906, all foreign coins were outlawed. However, the Chinese were suspicious of these paper patakas, being so accustomed to using silver for barter, and as such, the paper patakas circulated at a discount in relation to the silver dollar coins. In 1935, when China and Hong Kong abandoned the silver standard, the Hong Kong dollar was pegged to sterling at the fixed rate of 1 shilling and 3 pence, whereas the pitaka was pegged to the Portuguese escudo at a sterling equivalent rate of only 1 shilling. From 1945 to 1951, fractional coins of the pitaka were minted for issue in Portuguese Timor. And, in 1952, similar issues were minted for Macau, including an actual pitaka coin for the first time. Demographics: Macau is the most densely populated region in the world, with a population density of 20,497 persons per square kilometre in 2013. 95% of Macau's population is Chinese. Another 2% is of Portuguese and/or mixed Chinese-Portuguese descent, an ethnic group often referred to as Macanese. According to the 2006 census, 47% of the residents were born in mainland China, of whom 74.1% were born in Guangdong and 15.2% in Fujian. Meanwhile, 42.5% of the residents were born in Macau, and those born in Hong Kong, the Philippines and Portugal shared 3.7%, 2.0% and 0.3% respectively. The growth of population in Macau mainly relies on immigrants from mainland China and the influx of overseas workers since its birth rate is one of the lowest in the world. According to the World Factbook, Macau has the second highest life expectancy in the world, while its infant mortality rate ranks among the lowest in the world. Macau's official languages are Chinese and Portuguese. Macau still retains its own dialect of Portuguese, called Macanese Portuguese. Other languages such as Mandarin, English, and Hokkien are spoken by local communities. The Macanese language, a distinctive creole generally known as patois, is still spoken by several dozen Macanese. Most Chinese in Macau are profoundly influenced by their own tradition and culture, of which most take part in Chinese folk religion, of which the faiths of Taoism, Buddhism and Confucianism, form an integral part. Macau has a sizable Christian community. Roman Catholics and Protestants constitute 7% and 2% of the population respectively. In addition, 17% of the population follow original Mahayana Buddhism. Since Macau has an economy driven by tourism, 14.6% of the workforce is employed in restaurants and hotels, and 10.3% in the gambling industry. With the opening of several casino resorts and other major constructions underway, many sectors reportedly experience a shortage of labor, and the government seeks to import labor from neighboring regions. The number of imported workers stood at a record high of 98,505 in the second quarter of 2008, representing more than 25% of the labor force in Macau. Some local workers complain about the lack of jobs due to the influx of cheap imported labor. Some also claim that the problem of illegal labor is severe. Another concern is the widening of income inequality in the region. Macau's Gini coefficient, a popular measure of income inequality where a low value indicates a more equal income distribution, rose from 0.43 in 1998 to 0.48 in 2006. It is higher than those of neighboring regions, such as mainland China, South Korea and Singapore. Education. A 15-year free education is currently being offered to residents, that includes a 3-year kindergarten, followed by a 6-year primary education and a 6-year secondary education. The literacy rate of the territory is 93.5%. The illiterates are mainly among the senior residents aged 65 or above. The younger generation, for example the population aged 15–29, has a literacy rate of above 99%. Currently, there is only one school in Macau where Portuguese is the medium of instruction. Macau does not have its own universal education system. Non-tertiary schools follow either the British, the Chinese, or the Portuguese education system. There are currently 10 tertiary educational institutions in the region, 4 of them being public. In 2006, the Programme for International Student Assessment, a worldwide test of 15-year-old schoolchildren's scholastic performance coordinated by OECD, ranked Macau as the 5th and 6th in science and problem-solving respectively. Nevertheless, education levels in Macau are low among high-income regions. According to the 2006 census, among the resident population aged 14 and above, only 51.8% has a secondary education and 12.6% has a tertiary education. As prescribed by the Basic Law of Macau Chapter 6 Article 121, the government of Macau shall, on its own, formulate policies on education, including policies regarding the educational system and its administration, the language of instruction, the allocation of funds, the examination system, the recognition of educational qualifications and the system of academic awards so as to promote educational development. The government shall also in accordance with law, gradually institute a compulsory education system. community organizations and individuals may, in accordance with law, run educational undertakings of various kinds. Healthcare. Macau is served by one major public hospital, the Hospital Condes Januario, and one major private hospital, the Hospital Kiang Wu, both located in Macau Peninsula, as well as a university hospital called Macau University of Science and Technology Hospital in Cotai. In addition to hospitals, Macau also has numerous health centers providing free basic medical care to residents. Consultation in traditional Chinese medicine is also available. Currently none of the Macau hospitals are independently assessed through international healthcare accreditation. There are no Western-style medical schools in Macau, and thus all aspiring physicians in Macau have to obtain their education and qualification elsewhere. Local nurses are trained at the Macau Polytechnic Institute and the Kiangwu Nursing College. Currently there are no training courses in midwifery in Macau. The Health Bureau in Macau is mainly responsible for coordinating the activities between the public and private organizations in the area of public health, and assure the health of citizens through specialized and primary health care services, as well as disease prevention and health promotion. The Macau Center for Disease Control and Prevention was established in 2001, which monitors the operation of hospitals, health centers, and the blood transfusion center in Macau. It also handles the organization of care and prevention of diseases affecting the population, sets guidelines for hospitals and private healthcare providers, and issues licenses. Transport. In Macau, traffic drives on the left, unlike in either mainland China or Portugal, but like neighboring Hong Kong. Macau has a well-established public transport network connecting the Macau Peninsula, Cotai, Tepa Island and Koloan Island. Buses and taxis are the major modes of public transport in Macau. Currently 3 companies are Eurotransmac, Transporters Company de Macau and Riolian Public Transport Company AA Euro operate franchised public bus services in Macau. The trishaw, a hybrid of the tricycle and the rickshaw, is also available, though it is mainly for sightseeing purposes. The newest public bus operator, Riolian Public Transport Company, entered service on August 1, 2011. This new bus operator operates on the existing routes by Transmac and Transporters Company de Macau. The Outer Harbour Ferry Terminal and the Tepa Temporary Ferry Terminal provides cross-border transportation services for passengers travelling between Macau and Hong Kong, while the Yutping Terminal in the Inner Harbour serves those travelling between Macau and cities in mainland China, including Shikoku and Shenzhen. Macau has one active international airport, known as Macau International Airport, located at the eastern end of Tepa and neighboring waters. The airport used to serve as one of the main transit hubs for passengers traveling between mainland China and Taiwan, but now with the introduction of direct flights between those two regions, passenger traffic in this regard has lessened. It is the primary hub for Air Macau. In 2006, the airport handled about 5 million passengers. Culture. The mixing of the Chinese and Portuguese cultures and religious traditions for more than 4 centuries has left Macau with an inimitable collection of holidays, festivals and events. The biggest event of the year is the Macau Grand Prix in November, when the main streets in Macau Peninsula are converted to a racetrack bearing similarities with the Monaco Grand Prix. Other annual events include Macau Arts Festival in March, the International Fireworks Display Contest in September, the International Music Festival in October and/or November, and the Macau International Marathon in December. The Lunar Chinese New Year is the most important traditional festival and celebration normally takes place in late January or early February. The Putai Union Temple in Tepa is the place for the Feast of Tuti, the Earth God, in February. The procession of the Passion of Our Lord is a well-known Roman Catholic rite and journey, which travels from St. Austin's Church to the cathedral, also taking place in February. Àomén Temple, which honors the goddess Matsu, is in full swing in April with many worshippers celebrating the Àomén festival. In May it is common to see dancing dragons at the Feast of the Drunken Dragon and twinkling clean Buddhas at the Feast of the Bathing of Lord Buddha. In Koloan village, the Taoist god Tam Kong is also honored on the same day. Dragon Boat Festival is brought into play on Nam Van Lake in June and Hungry Ghosts Festival, in late August and/or early September every year. All events and festivities of the year end with winter solstice in December. Macau preserves many historical properties in the urban area. The historic center of Macau, which includes some 25 historic locations, was officially listed as a World Heritage Site UNESCO on July 15, 2005 during the 29th session of the World Heritage Committee, held in Durban, South Africa. Cuisine. Local cooking in Macau consists of a blend of Cantonese and Portuguese cuisines. Many unique dishes resulted from the spice blends that the wives of Portuguese sailors used in an attempt to replicate European dishes. Its ingredients and seasonings include those from Europe, South America, Africa, India, and Southeast Asia, as well as local Chinese ingredients. Typically, Macanese food is seasoned with various spices and flavors including turmeric, coconut milk, cinnamon and bacalhau, giving special aromas and tastes. Famous dishes include minkai, capella, galinoa portuguesa, galinoa africana, bacalhau, Macanese chili shrimps and stir-fry curry crab. Pork chop bun, ginger milk and Portuguese-style egg tart are also very popular in Macau. Notable people: Stanley Ho, business magnate, father of Macau gambling industry. Xian Xing'ai, a 1/4 micron noted musician and composer during Sino-Japanese War. Known work included Yellow River Cantata, Michelle Race, Hong Kong actress and former Miss Hong Kong. Edmund Ho, business leader, and chief executive of Macau SAR, Jenny Tsien, a famous Cantonese pop singer and actress in 70s and 80s. Ming Na Wen, ZAA TV and movie actress, one of the first Chinese-American actresses with a contract role. Sports. Macau has its own professional football league, the Campeonato da Una Divisa Pondo do Futebol, where the big three professional football clubs of Portugal have their own branches, SL Benfica de Macau, Sporting Clube de Macau and FC Porto de Macau. In general, football has the greatest popularity in Macau, which has a representative international side, Macau national football team. Another common sport is rink hockey, which is often practiced by the Portuguese. Macau always participates in the Rink Hockey World Championship in B category. The national team of Macau is the most powerful of Asia and has many Rink Hockey Asian Championship titles. The last championship was won in Dalian, China, at the 2010 Asian Roller Hockey Championship. The Automobile Racing Macau Grand Prix is arguably the most important international sporting event in Macau, mainly with Formula 3, motorcycle road racing and touring car races. Macau owns since 1989 a thoroughbred horse racing track called Tepa Racecourse operated by the Macau Jockey Club. The racecourse has a 15,000-seater grandstand. See also, Outline of Macau, Index of Macau-related articles, Visa requirements for Chinese citizens of Macau, Visa policy of Macau, Foreign relations of Macau, List of bridges and tunnels in Macau, List of twin towns and sister cities in China, Macau Science Center, Notes. References, Feng, Bong Yin. Macau, A General Introduction. Joint Publishing Company Limited. ISBN A962-04-1642-2. Chan, S.S. The Macau Economy. Publications Center, University of Macau. ISBN A99937-26-03-6. Godinu, Jorge. Macau Business Law and Legal System. LexisNexis, Hong Kong. ISBN A978-962-8937-27-1. Government Information Bureau. Macau Yearbook 2007. Government Information Bureau of the Macau SAR. ISBN A978-99937-56-09-5. Further reading, Kremer. Macau, City of Commerce and Culture. University of Washington Prairie. ISBN A0-295-96608-4. Bailey, Gina Macau 2000. Oxford University Press Editor, Oxford, United Kingdom. ISBN A0-19-592074-0. Bailey, Gina. Macau's Overview at the Turn of the Century. St. John's University Institute of Asian Studies Editor, New Yorker, De Pina Cabral. Between China and Europe, Person, Culture and Emotion in Macau. Berg Publishers. ISBN A0-8264-5749-5. Ayres, James. Macau Foreign Policy and Government Guide. International Business Publications, United States. ISBN A0-7397-6451-9. External links, Government, Portal of the Government of Macau, Government Information Bureau, Macau Yearbook, Cultural Affairs Bureau, Gaming Inspection and Coordination Bureau, General Information, Macau Entry at the World Factbook, Macau from UCB Libraries GovPubs, Macau at DMOZ, Macau Profile from the BBC News, Wikimedia Atlas of Macau, Country Study, Macau from the United States Library of Congress. Dr. Howard M. Scott. Macau, Travel, Macau Government Tourist Office, Macau City Guide, Special Education and Child Development, Macau Child Development Association, Sports, Rink Hockey in Macau.